I'm your host, Donna Cates, and each week we'll dive into powerful stories, expert strategies, and practical tools to help you take charge of your financial future. Whether you're planning for retirement, navigating a divorce, or simply looking to build your wealth with confidence, this is your space to grow, learn, and thrive. Let's get started with today's podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Empowered Wealth Weekly, where we have honest, uplifting conversations that inspire women to grow their influence, navigate life's pivots with courage, and build a life and wealth that reflects who they are. I'm your host, Donna Cates, and today I'm honored to be joined by Julie Gould, founder of Stellify. Julie is doing extraordinary work in the world, and I can't wait for you to hear her story and how she got here, what she's learned, and how she's lifting others as they grow in wealth and purpose. So, Julie, let's begin with the heart of it all. Tell us what you do, and more importantly, why you do what you do. What's the mission behind your work?
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for having me, Donna. I really appreciate it. So I founded Stellify, which is a strategic brand consulting company. And we work with both brands and people to help amplify what they're doing. The reason it's called Stellify means to become a star. And that is an intentional choice. I felt that when looking at what I do for clients, it's taking what they want to do and helping them shine even more in terms of becoming, the full potential of whether it's a business, whether it's a person, all about adding my strategic point of view to help them accomplish where they want to be. So with brands, we help build strategic roadmaps, to help them accomplish their business goals. For people, I consult with young professionals in terms of how to, get the most out of their career choices, how to navigate the challenges. I especially work with a lot of young women professionals because there's especially I feel as a woman in the working world, it's always important to lift those up as well and bring them along with you. I think that's a real big piece of what I do. And I believe a lot in empowerment. I feel that empowering others to then accomplish all that they can do is such a rewarding service area to be in, and that's why I left corporate world and started my own company to be able to have that impact in the world, to reach more people, more businesses. And I always work with companies that I believe in. And people especially that I believe in, and it has been an honor and it's been a joy to work with others. And I work with everyone from solopreneurs all the way up to billion-dollar corporations, and each one has a unique challenge. And I love getting to work with them, help identify what their goals are, work with them to set those goals, and then what are the steps in order to reach them. So it's been a joy. It's been a journey, a big learning experience for me in terms of making that leap, but I am forever grateful and love where I'm going and the world that's out there for me to continue to bring Stellify to more people.
Okay, that's awesome. And you mentioned that, you moved from the corporate world to running your own business. So I know that every passion has a backstory. So was there a moment or a challenge that sparked this path for you, something that shifted your purpose and made you step out and create this company?
Yeah, I have. I'm not the most traditional person in my field. Going into marketing, it was. I have a very untraditional background. So I guess the quick version of my background is I actually went to school for theater management. I had a big passion for theater, but backstage. And I pursued that with the hopes of accomplishing Broadway and getting to New York. But as I was doing that, I also have always had a pull towards marketing and branding and all that. So as I was getting my theater management degree, I also got a marketing minor as what I considered a backup plan. And then as I left college and I moved to New York City, I did off Broadway. And I felt like I was ready for my next journey, something a little bit more stable, something that I could have a family with too. And so I was able to merge my passions and I started doing marketing for theater. And then I started shifting into the corporate world, and I loved it. I have my background in food CPG, consumer packaged goods, and I've been in that industry for over 15 years now. And I was able to learn as I went, just using that minor from college. I've always been a curious learner. And I think that's an important quality for people to have, is just to enjoy the act of learning. And so I've learned every step of the way. And in doing so, it's also made me the underdog in most of my career situations. I've had to prove myself out, prove why I can do what I can do, even though I don't have the degree, even though. And so I found this every step of the way, no matter how big my title got, no matter how big my salary got, I still was having this conversation of, yes, I know it doesn't look like it, but I can. And after years and years of doing that, it's demoralizing at a certain point. But whenever I'm given those challenges, bring it on, and that's kind of what the attitude I had was. Great, well, I'll just keep proving you wrong, and that in the most positive way. And that's what led me to have the role I did. I was able to, the last corporate role that I had, I came in, they actually gave me a one role level lower than the job I applied for, because they felt I didn't have the master's degree, I didn't have the XYZ. I left that company as the senior director, running a $500 million portfolio with a team of amazing individuals, and I could do it just as much as everybody else, if not better. And what I found in that moment that made me change my journey was, after doing all of that, after proving myself out, there was opportunity to get to that next level, to become president of the entire business unit. And I was asked to interview. And every step of the way, I heard the same thing again of, this is why you're not qualified for it, even though I was asked to interview. And I thought at that point, I keep outgrowing the companies that I'm with. And this is a $1 billion company that it's well established. And at that point, I thought, it's time for me to take my future into my own hands. Why don't I focus on my passion, that strategic development, working with people, really empowering others with strategic thought, and help elevate others. And maybe I can do more good and kind of remove all that noise that outside people, traditionally older men, have been telling me that I'm not good enough. If I remove that, what's possible? And it's been amazing. And I've had the mentality every step of the way that I don't need to be perfect at everything I do, as long as I always say, good enough to be dangerous. So I can have just enough to get going, and then I learn from it. And I'm still learning. I'm constantly taking courses, reading books, having mentors, and just having conversations to learn from others and keep enhancing along the way. And I've been very fortunate. I have wonderful clients that have brought me on board, and I continue to grow, and the sky's the limit. And I think it really helped me take control of where I was going next, and not let someone else define who I am, because I've never been in a tidy box in terms of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people can feel the passion that I have for what I do, that I pour fully into my clients, you get that. And I get to have that connection with so many more people that appreciate it, and people that it can then help them achieve what they want to do. It feels like that's what, it's more impactful for me. It's more, it feels like what I was meant to be and where I've meant to go. And it couldn't have been possible if I hadn't had every step before me. But now it feels like I'm in more control of where I go next.
Well, and it sounds like your life, the challenges that you experienced, and the lack of confidence that people had just because you didn't have the right degree, that's really set you up for success, because you challenged them. You said, no, no, not heck no, but yeah, let me
Exactly.
show you how we're going to make this happen.
And I think it's
Well,
been one of my greatest assets, is that I don't, everybody who's trained a certain way to think has the same way to think, but having someone who has a unique, I'm going to come at problems from several different directions, and many that probably haven't been considered yet. And to me, I think that's my greatest asset, that I haven't had that trained out of me. That's still there. And that has allowed me to keep more of an open mind than than others necessarily who have been through the proper approach.
And I'm confident in hearing you talk. I can feel your enthusiasm, and it definitely shows on your face. So that's an awesome gift right there. But I sense that you're really empowering the people that you're working with that energy and that thinking outside of the box.
Yes.
I would love for you to share with us what's the biggest challenge that you see in the industry now, especially since, it's kind of like lawyers, they're a dime a dozen, right? So, how many marketing people are out there? But
Yes.
what do you see as the biggest challenge in the industry, and especially for women, and how are you navigating that?
Yeah, I think it's a couple fold. I mean, for my for women in the industry, I think there's not enough female and unique voices out there. Having been in plenty of boardrooms, having been in plenty of C-suite meetings, there's not the diversity that I feel there needs to be. Diversity of voice, diversity of perspectives, and even as a consultant, I often find that I'm the only woman in the meeting,
Mm,
and that's something that needs to change. And it doesn't, for me, I've been through it enough that it doesn't hold me back from being my
mhm,
full self. It took a while for me to gain that confidence, to feel empowered myself, to share my thoughts and stand up even when I'm the only woman in the room. But I would love to see the industry promote more smart, independent thinking females to have a perspective, and those from all different backgrounds too. The United States is a very diverse country, and the people
mhm,
making the decisions of, especially in the food industry from where I come from, the people making decisions of what shows up on shelf are not representative of the people who are consuming it. And I think the more
mhm.
that can mirror the society that we're in, it will just benefit everybody. It doesn't exclude anyone. It brings more perspectives, more voices, to the industry, and just betters everybody. And I think that's part of companies determining who they want to be, how they want to show up, and where they want to be, and how they want to be viewed by consumers. And that's where I kind of can help take that goal and show you how to get there. It's not an overnight thing. It comes from the core. You have to really make strategic choices to build to that. And today's consumers are challenging everything and want an authentic brand to be a part of. I think gone are the days where you can just have a flashy marketing message and people buy it and they think it's fun. It's no, they want to know what your company stands for. They want to know how you're showing up, and how it's not just lip service. How are you actually executing on that? And I think those that get it, that really embrace it, and heed the call that consumers are looking for, I think they'll be the winners in the long run. And so helping others see that, define what that means for them so that it is authentic. And I think that's
Mhm.
where a lot of, some of what I do is helping brands tell their unique stories, and so that it's not just emptiness out there. It's really, what are your roots? Where do you come from? Not just the product, but what is your company built off of, and where are you going with that message, and how are you using your opportunity to help amplify others? And that's something I think everybody can ask themselves and kind of see where that leads.
And I can't help but to wonder how many people are in business doing what they do, and they've never really even dug that deep.
Well,
I
that's another.
imagine that's it. That we're not getting that clear
Yeah.
message through their marketing or whatever they're delivering, because they've not even had the conversation with themselves yet. So
And that's
you're doing a big,
another challenge. Agreed. A lot of companies out there are so busy in the day-to-day management of their business, especially like solopreneurs too.
mm-hmm,
But brand companies out there are so focused on the day-to-day execution to make sure that they deliver and achieve their immediate needs. It's often an afterthought to strategically think about tomorrow, a couple years from now, 5 years down the road. And that's where Stellify comes in to help bring those questions. Sometimes it helps to bring a consultant in who isn't swept up in the day to day, who can look and see, okay, what's today look like? Great, but then let's also look at the future. And I think that is another challenge when you talk about challenges in the industry is you have to both handle today but also look towards the future and do them both simultaneously, because otherwise you're going to keep staying where you are today, and once you get through, you won't be heading towards anything. And so you need to make those choices so that you're intentional with where you're building.
Right, and that really relates to how I work with clients too, because in the financial planning industry, it's like people will come to me and say, "Hey, yeah, I've got this money for you to manage. I need it to grow for me." But now we need to figure what purpose is it going to serve?
Yes.
When do you plan to use it? Not just how aggressive are you and how big returns you want. So
Right.
yeah, we gotta be forward thinking and everything having a purpose, serving a purpose, I
Yes,
think.
exactly.
So share with us, I get the fact that you're totally unique because you are thinking outside of the box.
Mhm.
That's the first thing that I took away from our first conversation. But what makes your approach different when you're talking with clients? Is there a core value or belief that guides the way that you're working with those folks? Just what really makes you different from the next marketing guru?
Yeah, what I really enjoy taking the time to truly understand my clients, to understand their challenges, but also become an expert in their business as well. And so even if it's been an established business for a very long time, coming in and just learning everything I can about that business so that I can speak the language of the company to the
Mhm.
company. If it's a food brand, tasting their product, tasting the competitive product, how do they stand out? And through the journey of learning my clients inside and out, it allows me to pull apart those little nuances that set them apart, to understand how they are positioned versus the competition. And maybe some companies already have that already identified of, oh, here's what's different, but many don't even know what their differences are. And so through that journey, that learning, the constant learning, I get to become an expert of all these different industries, which is very fun. I always say I'm category agnostic. So I have worked across restaurants, food CPG, engineering firms, education. Like I've worked in all different areas, and each client I treat as a brand new opportunity because every client is unique. And that to me is that secret sauce of not approaching it with a one size fits all
Mhm.
angle. While the journey, the framework of where I'm going has, it's consistent in terms of learning. I have a process, learning, identifying where the opportunities are, developing that story, and then building those steps. That doesn't change, but that uh, the nuances of each one is unique. And I think that taking the time to do that and not just kind of churning out, you get a really bespoke approach in terms of what your business needs, someone who really listens. I speak to the different departments that you have. And if I'm building a sales deck for companies, I'll speak to the sales team. And part of the journey is I'm going to pitch you your sales deck that I'm working on right now, and then I want your feedback. And I want it to be an honest back and forth, because at the end of the day, this isn't for me to then take out, this is yours. And so I want to make sure that you're as fully into the output of my work as you are. And others, you send things out to another marketing business, and then they work in a void and then send something back to you. But I'm very much involved in terms of integrating myself to your business so that I can become just as much of an expert. I think one of my favorite moments in that journey was presenting about a product category to a team who works for $1 billion large company. I won't name them, but to their sourcing manager was right there, and I was sharing something about the nuances of production for their company and how you can tell the difference between different types of product. And one of the staff members turned to their sourcing manager and went, "Is that right?" And he goes, "Yeah, actually, yeah, that is." And the fact that I could do that without having, that was the first time I met that person, but I did my research. And that to me is where the best strategies can come from is when you're well researched in a category, in an area, you can learn how to use that to your benefit. Even if your story is similar to someone else's, if you get to tell it first, you get to own it. And so finding what that is for each individual client is a joy and an honor, and I really enjoy doing it.
That's awesome. And I think I have to say this, there's absolutely no way you ever get bored with your work because
Exactly.
you're learning new careers, new businesses, new
Yes.
products, new everything every time you work with somebody.
Yes.
How awesome is
I'm
that?
great at parties. I have all sorts of random knowledge that I can pull out.
That's awesome. The
Yeah.
walking encyclopedia there,
There
right?
you go.
Well, one of my favorite questions that we'll end with here is if you could have lunch with any woman, living or deceased, who would that be and why? What would you love to ask her?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think I'd really enjoy, I would say, I think Michelle Obama would be very interesting to sit down and meet with her because she has been able to stay authentically herself through a very interesting journey in her life and use her platform, continuing evolving her platform to do good for a great many people, for the health of the country, for, and even now she's raising voices with her podcast too. And I think that's very admirable, that it seems like the more visibility she gains, the more authentically she shows up. And I think she's trying, encouraging others to feel comfortable in their own skin and share their own unique perspectives. And that's something that I would love to pick her brain and learn more about that, and just find it very admirable.
Awesome. That's great. And luckily she's still among us. So you've
I
got
know,
that
right?
at some point. That's wonderful. Well, share with us, Julie, for listeners who would like to connect with you and learn more about the work that you do and how you might help them. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Sure. So my website is stellifyme.com. And on there is a list of all the different services I offer, including strategic roadmaps, sales presentations. And then you could email me at julie@stellifyme.com, and I will happily be in touch, and we can, see where we can help elevate your shine.
Absolutely. And I have to remind everybody, Stellify, the becoming a star, shining star.
Exactly.
All right. All right. Thank you for being a fabulous guest today. We enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me, Donna. I appreciate it.
I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, informed, and ready to take the next step in your financial journey. Remember, building wealth isn't just about money, it's also about creating a life that aligns with your goals and values. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with the women in your life who deserve financial empowerment too. Until next time, stay confident, stay empowered, and keep building the life you desire.